Okay, thanks for joining me. Today I want to talk about how narcissists manipulate you. And I'm just going to give you an example of how my narcissistic mother manipulated me and how she did it all throughout my life and what the effects were. And hopefully, you can use this to learn from, so you avoid, being manipulated by these terrible people. So anyway, the biggest manipulation tactics that my narcissistic mother used on me, I call it the 1-2 punch. And it starts with emotional manipulation. And the way she would do that is through something that's called love bombing. And what love bombing is, it's giving someone affection or attention or, admiration or love in a really intense, concentrated way. Like, they just pour it on you. You're the best, you're the most pretty, you're the most capable, you're the strongest, whatever it is. And they hammer you with the love bombing, and then they take it right away. And then it turns into, you're the worst, you cause so much trouble, you'll never be good at anything, So what ends up happening is it's this hot and cold effect that the way that it affected me emotionally was, you only want to get back to that place of the narcissist giving you that intense affection and love. So you do all you can to get back to that place. And when the narcissist takes that love away and then turns, evil on you and starts treating you poorly, it makes you feel like there's something wrong with me. So then, if you're experiencing this for years and years and years, especially as a child, that's where insecurity and fear and doubt and all those feelings and emotions begin to take a deep seed in your subconscious. So that's exactly what happened to me. And so what ended up happening was, as this would just progress with the emotional manipulation, I became vulnerable to the next strategy of how narcissists manipulate you, and that's with psychological manipulation. And I don't know how they, intuitively do this and figure this out, because companies and people spend millions, if not billions of dollars on learning how to manipulate people. So the fact that these narcissists, these pea-brain narcissists, can do this intuitively, they're drawing from a higher source. So anyway, so the next tactic is psychological manipulation by gaslighting. And gaslighting, from my understanding, it's an old term of like someone's inside this house and they think it's nighttime and dark, but someone is turning the lights on and it's making them think it's day. I think that's where the story comes. But a simple version of gaslighting, it's just altering your perception of reality. Narcissists are so good at manipulating your reality, and especially if you're already primed with the emotional manipulation and the emotional abuse, then the gaslighting is really easy to take effect on you. And examples of gaslighting when I was a kid would be like, telling me, like, invalidating my emotions, how I feel. Oh yeah, you're just too sensitive. That's your problem. I heard that a lot. You're just so sensitive, Annie. And so that kind of invalidates how, I was feeling as a child. Another way is like blame shifting, where you do something that they don't like, and and you're not in the wrong. Like, what you did is fine, and it's not. You don't really need to be punished for it. But they'll easily shift the blame onto you for doing something that they don't like. Blame shifting, denying your emotions. I'm trying to think of another example. Okay, here's another example. It's their story, and like what they'll do is, like, I recently met this narcissist like a couple years ago, and I did a job out at their place, and it's this lady, and we just met, and I was working at her place, and she comes immediately with her narcissist story of how she's a victim, and everyone has victimized her throughout her life. And I'm kind of thinking, like I just met her, number one, and number two, she already got the sense of my like vulnerability, like she sniffed me out, and then she started to do her narcissistic witchcraft on me. And it was, by establishing that she's this victim, and everyone has screwed her over, and she has all these problems. Another thing, narcissists, they have all these like physical problems and ailments they're always complaining about. And so she expressed all this in an attempt to manipulate reality. She's trying to manipulate how I perceive her in reality, and she's trying to manipulate what I would eventually, what I would think of her. And she's like greasing the skids for, the fact that she's a victim and everyone screwed her over and poor her. But in all actuality, it's probably the complete opposite. From what I perceived, I think she's like not really that great of a person, and like uses everyone around her, and she probably has a trail of disaster behind her. But I've kind of kept my distance with her. She's definitely tried to reel me in, and she's even done the love bombing, just, reaching, I don't know, just kind of like crossing lines that normally you really shouldn't. But she is a customer, so I do want to keep the business. Anyway, a great example that I recently went through with my narcissistic mother, before I understood all this narcissism stuff. This is recently as an adult. I came to her and my dad, and I just wanted to express what I was feeling, because I've been sober, not drinking, not smoking weed for 5 or 6 years, and that had allowed me to fully feel and recognize everything that was happening. So I wasn't escaping the feelings, and I was able to interpret events that were happening in my life and observe them, and really understand, like, is this something that's good or bad? And the majority of what's coming from my narcissistic mother is bad. And so, before I even understood narcissism or personality disorders, I just approached it from more of a compassionate, empathetic point of view of, oh, this person, my mother, she must be going through something that's plaguing her, that's causing her to behave this way. And that in itself is the psychological and manipulation and the emotional manipulation that I experienced. It's been 40 years of that. So I was already pre-programmed by her to think that me expressing my emotion to her about how she's treating me, I must be doing something wrong. Like, I must be triggering her and causing her to go through some emotional turmoil that then in turn is causing her to react and treat me like shit. And that's how deep that programming goes. Especially when, she started on me when I was an infant. I was a baby. And it went all the way until about 40 years until I cut her ass off. And man, she is not happy about it. Anyway, so I scheduled this time to sit down and talk with them, and it was real simple. I'm approaching it from an empathetic standpoint. I want to understand what's going on with her. I just want to express myself and say, listen, I'm experiencing this. How can we solve this and work through it? Because we live on their property. My wife and kids, we're on their stupid property, and we have to deal with them. I'd rather just have everything amicable. So initially, just the first thing sitting down was just like, hey, like, I'm getting all this negative energy from you. I want to resolve this so we can all live here together happily and in peace. And, this is what I'm experiencing. And she immediately jumps to where she's turning it around and playing the victim. Oh, so she's like, oh, you're just telling me I'm a shitty mother. That was her immediate first response, which, that turns the blame. So now it's like, I'm accusing her of being a terrible person and a shitty mother, and that is my fault. So that was her first reaction. And then, of course, her next reaction, because then I was just trying to explain to her, I'm expressing my feelings. This is what I'm feeling. Oh, Danny, you're too sensitive. You're just too sensitive. That's another thing, invalidating how I feel. And then she basically, just continued with the victim thing, invalidating, my point of view, how I'm feeling. And then she just kept, well, I'll do better. I'll do better. And she just kept saying, she just kept like pushing me off by saying that. Well, I'll do better. And she wouldn't take responsibility or ownership of any wrongdoing. And that's another sense of manipulating reality, where all she could have done is, and this is what normal people do, and especially myself. I make mistakes all the time, especially with my kids. Like my 6-year-old, she's raging. You're kind of like, you freak out. But, normal people, when they get mad and yell or make a mistake, then you go to that person and you own your behavior. Listen, I lost my cool. I'm sorry that happened. Can you forgive me? That's what normal people do. But the narcissist can't even own up to one ounce of their terrible behavior. And I expressed to my mother, this is my whole life. This has been happening, and it caused me great turmoil. To do drugs and drink and drive and almost die. That's really sad, man. You think a mother would have compassion for a kid, but not this woman. So these are the main. These are the main manipulation points that I experienced. Was the emotional manipulation, and then the psychological manipulation with the love bombing, and then the gaslighting. And once you become aware of these, and you learn about them, because that's your only way out of this, is the truth will set you free. The truth set me free. Once I learned, and I was seeking the truth, and I started to understand this and these concepts, and then I could observe them, and then understand how they're affecting me, then it really did set me free. So, check out the gaslighting, check out the love bombing, learn about it, and see, and then observe the behavior coming from your narcissistic abuser, or if you're just trying to learn about this in general. It's very enlightening. But anyway, that's pretty much it for now. But I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.